Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I'm your host, Neil. In today's episode, we continue our series on why people leave the church. Now, this is one of my other youth that I've had the privilege of being a youth pastor with. His name's Gary. Now, Gary, hopefully he doesn't edit this out. The reason why I say that is Gary is actually my editor of the show. And he did agree, I think grudgingly, to sit down with me and talk to me about his church experience and his youth experience. It's pretty fascinating. Gary's a very intellectual guy, so hopefully this will reach those who are kind of intellectual and kind of hear his story on why he left the church. Pretty fascinating, at least from my account. So I hope you're ready, because you know I am. Here we go!
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I'm your host, Neil, and I'm again sitting down with one of my former youth kids. It's so hard to believe this because they're adults now. So most of these kids that and I say adults, but if I accidentally slip up and say kids, all of them are adults now. All of them at one point in time were either involved or participated in some portion of their adolescent youth area, so middle school time frame to high school time frame. And today I get the privilege of talking with Gary. Now, a little background on Gary that I know. Gary, in my definition, would be a church kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Grew up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Parents were active in the church. In fact, your dad, Alan, name dropping now, did a ton of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Ton of stuff for the church back in the day. And great guy. I love your parents dearly. They're wonderful people. And but Gary, you were one of those church kids that, like I said, went junior high, high school, and at one point in time, you may not know this. Maybe I've shared this with you. I don't know, but you were kind of that go-to kid.
Oh, yeah.
That I would use, like if I needed something done, or if I
yeah.
knew that something needed to get done quick and fast and right away. You were that guy.
Yeah, I kind of knew that.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I kept that a secret or not.
Since I always did everything, that kind of
You did.
hinted at it.
You did. You did do a lot of stuff. Gary, funny story now, is actually the editor of this podcast.
Yes.
I'm giving you creditation now.
Ooh.
So now you get to be not only in an episode, but you will edit this episode, which I hope doesn't get edited down enough. So I'm really trusting that content is going to stay on par.
Oh, don't worry. I'll make myself look good at least.
There you go. Make yourself look good. Stop it. Okay, so again, this coming off the premise of why kids leave the church, and coming off the Barna Study Group, You Lost Me. I've been reading that book currently, and blew my mind, and so we've kind of taken a little detour from the normal, everyday, previous episodes of Other People's Shoes to kind of dive into this topic, because for me, this is kind of a curious topic, and it's kind of been a hard topic to tackle. So, but without further ado, let's get into it. Gary, you ready?
Oh, drum roll, please.
Drum roll. You could add that in.
Oh.
I'll give you creative privilege on this episode to throw in some sounders or whatever. Okay, so first question, Gary, and we kind of alluded to this at the onset, but just it bears repeating perhaps. The first time you went to church, you were how old?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
One of my first memories of
there you go.
of church, though, was the the children's church they kind of have during when adults are out in the big area getting the sermon, but they have the children's church back in the little other part of the room where there's the teacher he or she gives the lesson on the Bible story of the day. And one of my first memories was memorizing all the books in the Bible. Like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, all the way up to...
Can you go all 66?
I used to.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's one of those things, it's kind of like one of the trivial things that...
Kind of fades over time? Okay.
Yeah, I know them all. I just can't, do them all in order now.
Right. So if you had a Bible quiz, you feel like you could ace that?
It depends on
As far as books of the Bible names.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you,
that's what I meant.
If you gave me a comparison of two books, which one's in the Bible?
Hey, this is in the Bible. This one isn't. You could pick out the Okay. Yeah. By the way, I don't think a lot of, we'll call them air quote evangelical Christians could probably do that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can probably even do some of the apocryphal books too.
Wow.
It's an interesting subject to read into.
I guess so. So, just again, it bears repeating. I said it. You remember Andy?
Yeah.
We had Andy on earlier. It bears repeating. Anything that we say today is not in any way, shape, or form a way of bashing or denouncing or anything like that. That's not the goal here. The goal here is just to figure out why they're leaving, why he left or why she left, and that's it. So you may hear some church names, you may hear some people's names, but in no way, shape, or form are we bashing the religion, and I'll air quote that even, the religious institution. But me as a former youth leader and even a current youth leader, I am fascinated by why so many of my youth have left. And so that's where we begin again. So you don't remember how old, but you remember, being in a, now what church was it? Do you know?
It was Eagle Point Community Bible Church.
So it was Eagle Point Community Bible Church. Okay.
Yes. It's one of the staples of the Eagle Point community.
It is. Yeah. Which Gary and I are both from Eagle Point.
Yes.
It's taken a long time for me to say that, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Really long time. So you go through this program, and so this is like mainly elementary, and then what happens?
Oh yeah, it was. You have the children's church, and they have all the church events that go with it. They have kind of like even though the Boy Scouts is pretty Christian oriented, they had the more Christian oriented Awanas, which I was in Sparks, and I was. I can't remember what comes after Sparks.
You were a straight up church kid.
Oh,
dropping Awana on me. So you were probably even a Cubby, which is before the Sparks.
Maybe it's you're about
okay.
5 or 6 when you become a Sparks.
It's
so.
okay. Yeah. My daughter was a Cubby.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
And then a Spark. So okay.
But yeah, you go through memorize Bible verses, all that fun stuff, and then getting older, we kind of left that church around when my grandpa died, about in 2001. Yeah, 2001. And then we started going to where you go, and I was still a youth kid. We started going there when I was about 12 or 13.
So this is now neighborhood church.
Yeah, neighborhood
You might
church.
notice a theme. Andy also went to neighborhood church. So
yep.
Again, not bashing neighborhood church. Just full disclaimer.
Yep. And yeah, me and Andy were both part of the youth group from middle school into high school, and then a little bit after too. Kind of helped out with some stuff. But yeah, going to the youth group, doing all the events, going to the camps.
You had a great youth leader, right?
Well,
we'll come to that. We'll get to that. Okay. Well, that's awesome. So, what's something you learned back then that you still use today or still carry with you today? Is there anything?
Something I learned. You might have to be a little more specific. Like what kind of knowledge? Like,
yeah. I mean, is there a principle? Is there a thought? Is there a concept? Is there anything that you've taken from those years of being in a youth program or middle school program, or even back in, the early years you're talking about Awana and all that? Is there anything that you've now used or are still using to this day at the age of how old again?
I will be 30 in just 2 months.
30.
Yeah. In March.
Makes me feel old.
Yeah. And I started as your kid, and so I was 13.
Yeah. So that was we didn't go further down that road. But is there but you know what I mean? I mean, the idea you talked about memorizing stuff, right? You talked about because let's face it, there's 66 books in the Bible. I would venture to say 9 out of 10 people probably can't name all 10 or all 66 books, right?
Yeah.
So did that ability of memorizing things, did that carry over into any adultism, we'll say?
I think it helped with, I'm still interested in, the religions and stuff like that. So yeah, it kind of helped, with that background, reading different, like some of the apocryphal books as well, reading those. So I kind of had the Bible to draw on when I went into those and kind of gave them context. And it gives context to some historical stuff that happens as well.
So fair to say that that gave you a foundation for your faith. And again, I'll air quote faith, because we'll maybe define that later.
Yeah, because that is one of those tricky words that...
That's what I'm saying. I'll air quote it. Because faith to you may not be faith to someone else.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, all
yeah.
right.
And that kind of gets lost in translation when people talk about this stuff.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I personally don't. I mean, I know what my faith is, but, for those, maybe don't. So, okay. Here's another question. Do you feel like you ever made a decision to accept Jesus as your Savior? Do you remember a moment, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they had the first, let's just say the first time I did it was when I was, I think, 6 or 7.
Okay.
So,
do you feel like you knew what you were doing then?
Yes and no. I knew it was something that when you're a kid, they teach you, okay, this is good. You should do this kind of thing. And so that's what I was thinking. If by doing this, I'm doing something good. And I didn't know exactly. I don't think I know exactly what that meant. I just knew I was doing something good, and everybody would be proud of me for doing it and that sort of thing. And yeah, in church you have the altar calls. If you've done something bad, go up and give it up to God and let Him take the burden.
For those
off.
that don't maybe were raised in the church, but that was your experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I knew I'd been doing like not listening to my parents, that sort of thing, or
What?
No.
Your parents are amazing. Why would you not listen to them?
Well, I mean, if they told me to clean my room, and I didn't.
Valid point.
I was a very messy child. I'm a messy adult too.
So you say you made that decision around
6 or 7.
6 or 7. Okay, and then fast forward. Did you make a rededication using church lingo?
When they would do the altar calls later on, it would be kind of I would understand more what it meant. Go up to the altar, give this stuff up. When you do something that is sin in the eyes of God, give it up and take a burden off of yourself. And so I knew more of what that meant later on, and I knew what I was doing then when I started, getting later on in my 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all those years. And so, I kind of knew more of what I was doing then.
Okay. So what kept you going to church in those days? Church, youth group, we'll say.
Well, in those days, the entire, entire dozen or more years stint, or just when I was a kid, or...
Yeah, I mean, all of it. What did... I guess I'm asking, did your parents make you go? Was it an option ever to not go to church? I mean, was it something you wanted to do, or was it something they really forced you to do?
So yeah, when I was younger, of course, it was more of, okay, it's time for church, let's go. So it wasn't really forced as part of just what we did. So it was kind of
eating breakfast.
Yeah, eating breakfast. Okay, now we'll go to church.
Right.
And then it's actually funny because when I was 7 or 8 or maybe 9, I was at one of my friends' houses, and I just asked one Sunday, what did you guys do at church? Not even thinking that other people don't even do it. And so, so it was kind of part of the daily routine that I just thought everybody did. So we'll just do this. And then later on, as I kind of, learned more and was able to rationalize, so to speak, more in my younger years. You're not really still rational when you're 11 or 12, but as I got older and more rational in the process, I started to understand more of, I'm not doing this because, it's part of a routine. I'm doing this more because God wants me to do it, sort of thing. And then later on, it was into my more teenage years. It was more of, I want to do this because I want to do it for God. And then it started in the high school. It was more, I'm doing this because I want to be with God and have this relationship and do all these things for Him. And so it kind of morphed over the years as I grew.
Okay, so those are good reasons. So you don't ever feel like anywhere along the way your parents said, Gary, you must go to church.
They actually used it as a punishment for me not going to youth group. So it was...
So talk about that. I'm baffled by that. I mean, I've
So-
heard that through the years from other youth and other parents that they're like, we ground our kids from youth group. I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was, this Wednesday sort of fun thing that you did.
Right.
And you looked forward to. So if I did something like not do my homework or something like that for a long stint of time, which I was prone to do back then.
Who wasn't?
Well, yeah, it was a different story. I almost gave my mom a nervous breakdown at one
Okay.
point. So,
Another topic. Sorry, Shelley. We love you. But
but yeah, they would say, okay, you can't do this fun thing that you want to do as a punishment. And so I looked at it as more of something I wanted to do. They really didn't have to force me to do it.
okay.
Like I said in the earlier days, they brought me along, so it was kind of...
Right. I mean, you didn't have a choice when you're 7.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to leave you at home
Yeah, exactly.
with some cookies and milk and maybe some bread and be like, okay, see you in about 2 hours.
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story because I remember complaining one day on the way to church because my dad actually he used to not go with us very often, more of the, Easter and Christmas type. And so...
He was an EC Christian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, one of the ECs.
Got it.
And yeah, I remember complaining to my mom, like, why, if we're going to church, how come Dad doesn't have to go? And then I just didn't understand that it was more of like, he's just more of an Easter church kind of person. But, as he's grown more, he's become more involved.
He's way more involved now.
Yes, very involved.
Way more involved, which is good from my perspective, at least. Okay. So, I don't know if did we ever settle on this? Was there an exact moment other than when you were younger that you accepted that in your mind you accepted Jesus? I mean, fast forward, was there a moment like you're 15 or 16 or whatever, maybe even 17, and you had that moment, like maybe it was at a camp or maybe it was at an event or something like that?
Like I said before, it was like sort of a morphed thing.
Okay.
And grew into what it was.
Okay.
And so, yeah, as I got older, I kind of started understanding what that meant.
More understanding of the decision that you
Yeah.
made back then when you were younger.
Exactly.
Okay. So this is going to be fun. I'm ready for this. Hopefully you are too.
Yes, the why did you leave part.
Yeah. What made you stop?
Well, we were having this kind of sort of conversation earlier
Yeah.
about the book you're reading.
Pre-show. I always call
Yes.
those pre-show
Yes, the
conversations.
pre-show conversation.
Yep.
But, as I started getting older and, out of high school and into college and that sort of thing, it starts becoming, you start learning a lot more critical thinking. You start learning a lot more of, why do you believe this other than the teacher is telling you this sort of information, but why do you believe what the teacher is telling you? And so, I just started, looking into, and this is another part of it too, like we were talking before the show, technology is at everybody's fingertips now. And so it's a lot easier for people to look into other religions, and that's what I started doing too.
So would you categorize yourself in looking to other things?
At that time, when I was started morphing from out of high school into college, I started, kind of branching out because I knew, like, I had friends growing up who were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they had a sort of like a different sect of Christianity, and I had some friends who were Mormons, and then I didn't really know anybody from any other religions or anything, and so I just started thinking, there's a billion plus Hindus, there's a billion plus 2 billion, I don't know how many people who profess that they're Muslim, and there are a billion people who say they're Christian. So, why do they believe these things? And why do I believe what I do? And so I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, I just always did it because it was just, like I said before, just wake up, go to church after eating breakfast, and then I started looking at it and saw that experience was the same thing for all these other groups. You have the Hindus there who are raised, they're born into Hinduism, and they've just always done it because they've always done it. And same thing with people who are Muslim in like Pakistan or Afghanistan or the Philippines or even here in America, they're born into being Muslim. And so, yeah, I just started looking at all these different groups, and trying to think about, okay, they were born into it, so now why do they believe what they believe apart from that? And that comes into where you were talking about before, faith. All these people say they have faith. And so why do they have faith in this when somebody else can say, I have faith in this? And so, yeah, it was just more of studying other religions is when I really started to, leave going to church and all that stuff.
Was there a singular moment?
Singular moment?
Or maybe a series of moments where you said, it's time to see what I really believe?
It's like I said, it's been just a morphing experience over the years.
Okay.
So there's not really like one single event. It's more of a process. As you start reading into other things, your faith kind of in this kind of dwindles as you see, okay, somebody who says they're Hindu says, okay, I believe this because of this experience and this experience and this experience. But then, you talk to somebody who's Christian, they say the same exact things except for being Christian. And so it kind of dwindles once you go down the list, if that makes sense.
I think it does. I know for me, I hit the age of 30. So I was almost your age now,
Yep.
Which is hard to believe. But I hit the age of 30, and I actually had taken a job with the city of Eagle Point, believe it or not. And I ended up interacting with it was a rec league put on by the city, and it was a development league called Junior Eagles. So younger kids would come and learn how to play volleyball and basketball and whatnot. Well, my job was to manage the gym and get it ready for games and practices and whatnot. So I interact with these two gentlemen who are Mormon, and they immediately invite me to come play basketball at the Mormon church here in Eagle Point. And I love basketball. So, of course, I go. Well, I'm feeling like I'm walking into this crazy place. No disrespect to Mormons on this point. So I bring a friend with me because I'm like, well, they can't convert me if my friend's there. And so we went and we played basketball a couple of times. And then one of the guys there that had invited me said, hey, we're going to play football on Thanksgiving. Will you come play with us? So I did. And then as I'm getting ready to leave on Thanksgiving, like Turkey Bowl, like most people play on Thanksgiving Day, he says, can the missionaries come to your house? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I was so desperate for social interaction at that time. My daughter was very young. My wife was going off to work. I couldn't find a sales job or any job for that matter, except for this, city job. So I was dying and desperate for social interaction. Being an extroverted person that I am, it was killing me staying home all day by myself. There's only so much The View you can watch.
And that you can handle.
And that you can handle. Exactly. So fast forward. So these guys come to our house. They start talking to me about Mormonism. And then somehow Jehovah's Witnesses start coming to my house. And they want to talk to me about, Jehovah's Witness. And so I remember having this conscious thought. And that's why I asked, is I had this conscious thought. What if I didn't believe in Christianity? What if I wasn't raised in the church? What if I didn't become a pastor? What if, all these what if. And so I said to myself, literally had this conscious thought, that's why I asked that question, is can I set Christianity on the shelf and not have the Christianity filter or evangelical Christianity, but could I believe in Mormonism? Could I believe in Jehovah's Witness? And actually what that took me down over the next 2-year period was an in-depth study in the Book of Mormonism, was an in-depth study into Jehovah's Witness. I mean, reading everything I could on both of them. And for me, this is just me, I couldn't subscribe to what they were asking people to subscribe to. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah.
Because it just didn't make sense. There were so many things that didn't make sense. And so then, of course, I go back to, not that I ever stopped being, quote unquote, stopped being a Christian, but I went back to, well, now I know this is true. Did you ever have any of those moments or even have that journey?
For me, it was more of why do I think this is true? I kind of put Christianity in with like you said, Mormonism and the Watchtower societies, Jehovah's Witnesses, and and Christianity as well. And I kind of looked at them kind of as individual on their own instead of I'm a Christian looking at this, if that makes sense. And so I kind of took a step back and started looking at each thing individually as far as each claim goes. As far as Mormonism goes, they believe, Joseph Smith was a prophet who found these tablets and then translated them. Did I say Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses?
You said Mormons first.
Okay, yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses have a similar story.
Yeah,
minus the tablets.
Yeah, they have a prophet who came around and revealed that the world was going to end, and they are in this perpetual state of being prepared for the end of the world now. Right. And
James Rutherford, or James T. Rutherford, started the Jehovah's Witness Watchtower Society, translating of the Bible because he felt like it wasn't translated correctly and we were being led astray. Joseph Smith, exactly what you said. Palmyra, New York, is where they get their start. He has they have different accounts, but the adopted account, or the certified account now, I guess, is he was 16. He was in the woods. There was a Bible revival going on, and he wasn't sure which denomination to join, and he prayed and asked God, show me which one to join. And God said, none of these. I'm going to have you do your own.
Yeah. At
16. So there's that.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, I kind of did the Joseph Smith thing, which one's the right one?
Right.
Is it this branch of Christianity? Is it the non-denominational churches that are everywhere? Or did the Baptists have it right, or the Pentecostals, or who got it right? And so I kind of like, okay, they all disagree with each other and they all say something different, and then you have Catholics who say, okay, you can get to heaven by works as well, and there are other people saying, no, you can't do that, you have to be baptized and accept Jesus, and other people say, oh, you just have to accept Jesus. Then there are some people who say you just have to believe, and you don't have to do the whole, sitting, kneeling, and giving your life over sort of thing. And they all have different outcomes for each. The more fundamental you get, the more kind of strict it gets, if that makes sense.
It does.
And so if one of these has it right, then the rest are wrong. And for me, that kind of, why is everybody thinking something different? And then at that point, it was just more of, okay, started checking off the list of arguments for why I believe what I believe. And, I went down a list for, I started thinking, okay, there's the one everybody goes to pretty often is, look around you, everything's so beautiful, it has to be created. And then you go back and say, okay, but there's a natural order for things. There's a process for things, but then you go back and some people will say, well, that's because there's somebody who gave it that process. And for me, I was sort of seeing, okay, but you have to then explain where that sort of position comes from, where that creator comes from, who created that creator. And then that's where the special pleading comes in. Like, well, it's just always been there. But you're saying something this complex has to be created, then why is it the case something that complex wasn't created? And so at that point, that was like one of the first ones that I kind of like checked off my list. And I started being, not the first one of the last ones, sorry. And then before that, I was pretty, what you describe as like a deist. Maybe more of a theist. Deist, they're kind of different than, it's pretty complex when you get into different terminologies. But before that, I was more of, okay, there's God. He's, involved in people's lives. Then after that, okay, it's more of the deist perspective, the hands-off kind of perspective. And then after that, it was just, okay, then why anything at all at that point after that?
Good perspective on that. So did anyone at the church, do you feel like, ever fail you?
Not necessarily. It was more of, you kind of, when you're born into it, it's more of, I don't know how to describe it, because it's more of, I kind of feel like indoctrination. you're born into it, then you just kind of just follow this pattern your entire life without really rationalizing why you're doing this. And that's, I wouldn't say like a failing, but it kind of, I would say it kind of like didn't help out later on when I started trying to do critical thinking and that sort of thing. Because I always hit this roadblock of, believing something without, going through all the steps of why I believe this.
So in that same kind of realm, any leaders ever fail you in your mind?
No, I mean, everybody was doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And so from that, I would say no. I mean, yeah, everybody was just doing it because that's what we believe, and
we did
sharing.
Get paid for it. I'm just kidding. We did, but that's not why we did.
I never got paid.
Oh well, sorry about that. You got cookies and soda and candy bars.
I love cookies.
Everyone loves cookies. Okay, so when you look back, is there any moment that is maybe a great moment? And then in the same respect, is there a moment that you look back on that you maybe don't look on as great as that other moment? So maybe a good moment and a bad moment. I'm making that way too complicated. Good moment, bad moment. Do you have one?
As far as being involved in the church or after? Okay, yeah. I mean, the good, I wouldn't say a moment, but the sense of community that it brought was definitely a good thing. What a lot of people end up lacking is a good communal base to draw from, and that was something that the church brought. It was that good communal base. Bad, I would say, oof. I wouldn't say a moment, but more of a concept of, there's the whole I was raised, sin is sin no matter what. Stealing is just as bad as murder, that sort of thing. But, it's more of a gray area once you get into, okay, you steal this, but are you trying to feed yourself so you don't die? Are you trying to feed your family so you don't die? One of the ones I looked at was in, when they're wandering around in the desert in the Bible. The Israelites are wandering around in the desert before they finally settle in their promised land, and I think it's after the Battle of Jericho, I think it was, but a man named, I think it was Achan. I can't remember can't really pronounce all those names that well.
That's okay. They're really tough Old Testament
names. A lot of people can't pronounce those names.
It's true. Don't feel bad about that.
But yeah, Moses said, okay, go in, kill everybody and burn the entire place to the ground. So I don't think it was Jericho. And when they were basically going through and,
pillaging the land.
Yeah, pretty much. And Moses said, okay, but God says, burn everything, do not take anything for yourselves. And this one man, he took a little plunder and brought it home. So he took it and brought it home, but they found out about it. And so there was this whole, going through all the tribes who took this
weeding
plunder.
Out process.
Yeah, this whole weeding out process, because there was something bad happening to Israel at that point. And they pinned down, okay, it must be somebody who took plunder from this town we raided. And so they finally got to Achan, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but I can't remember if he confessed or they brought the evidence to him.
Well, he hid it, right?
Yeah, he hid it.
Hid it in his tent.
Yeah.
And splits open.
Yeah.
Eats him. No, I think he gets burned.
No, yeah, he gets burned.
That
was his punishment.
And then they go to his wife, and she's like sitting on it, and she's like, hey, I can't get up because I'm dealing with my lady monthly thing.
Yeah, but the thing that kind of, looking at the whole sin aspect of it, okay, the sin of the children not obeying their parents, they didn't know that his dad wasn't supposed to bring this plunder home, and they were helping him hide it. So,
And they were punished too.
And they were punished too. They were also burned along with everything that he owned.
Right.
And so
you're trying to justify that.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was trying to, justify was, why should these kids who are obeying what they were told to do in the Bible, as far as, honoring your parents, doing what they say, and then a commandment given to their father, not to them, because why would they need to know not to take anything from the town they're plundering? That doesn't make sense why you would tell a child that. And then, there were other things that kind of conflicted with that. There was, raiding of other villages in the land that was go into the village, kill every man, woman, and child, but all of the young unwed women take for yourselves. And so that was pretty disturbing to me, as far as, you're telling people not to sin, not to murder, but here you are commanding people to murder and then take these young girls as like hostages, pretty much hostages and slaves. Yeah, sure. And so, that was kind of like one of the definite bad points for me, was the cognitive dissonance of sin in the Bible.
Okay. So, you don't have any kids yet?
No.
He's available, ladies. He's single.
You can't see it, but I winking at
it was a good wink, by the way. So let's fast forward. Let's say you have kids. Okay, mm-hmm. You're married, you have kids. What are you going to tell your kids about church?
It depends if they want to go. If they, I don't mind. But it's ultimately up to them. I mean, if they have some sort of experience that, cements some belief that they have, that's their experience. If they have, say, Muhammad comes down riding on the donkey and reveals himself to them, that's their experience. Who am I to tell them they haven't experienced that? And so it would be ultimately their choice. But I would have them think rationally about things as well. I would try to advise them to not look at something through rose-colored lenses, to take a step back, take those lenses off, and rationally think about, okay, if I'm experiencing this, was I like really tired and not slept for the past couple days, and all of a sudden this happened? Well, it might not exactly be some sort of revelation, but like I said, again, ultimately it's their experience and their choice, and so it's up to them.
So you wouldn't discourage them from going?
Oh,
I guess
no.
What I'm asking. Okay,
no.
Cool.
Not unless it was, the Westboro Baptist Church that they decided to start going to.
Nothing against those guys. They just might do it a little different. So, Gary, where do you get your authority from? Where does that come from?
As far as that goes, it's just empathy. It's, I wouldn't want somebody to steal from me or kill me, so I don't do that to other people. And that's something, sort of something that we've come to have as a social species over the years, is that sort of empathy, since we have to interact with everybody on a daily basis. We've sort of gotten this empathy that we share with other people, and so since I don't want people to steal from me, since I don't want people to kill me or kill other people, I definitely would not do it, and I see that as something that's pretty horrendous if somebody decides to do that. And it's not something that I'm looking at as, one thing I always wonder is, if you're doing this because somebody tells you it's bad, then why are you doing it because somebody's telling you it's bad? Why wouldn't you not want to do it because it's just bad by itself, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So this again from the Barna Group. So this is 6 reasons why young people leave the church. According to them, over a 5-year study, 6 reasons. So we'll blast through these, and I'm just curious, agree or disagree, and then if you want to obviously throw a little explanation in, if you want, you don't have to, but just agree or disagree. Okay? So, number 1, Church seems overprotective. Agree or disagree?
It depends on what you say by church. If you say the organization or just the group of people that commune around church.
Yeah, we'll say in this respect, we'll say the evangelical church. Putting them on display.
Also, I'm a stickler when it comes to words. If you haven't noticed, but
I've noticed that. But this is good.
But yeah, it also means, what do you mean by protective? Are you talking about protecting their beliefs or protecting just?
Yeah, I don't have more than that. It just says churches seem overprotective. I got nothing other than that. Yeah, that's all I got.
I can't really give you a strong agree or strong disagree. It's kind of both.
Okay.
Because like I said, for example, with Jehovah's Witnesses, if somebody comes into the church and starts, they have these meetings where everybody's pretty much allowed in, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, and they have people can stand up and talk and give their testimony. And if somebody stands up and starts talking about some of the bad things that Jehovah's Witnesses, not Jehovah's Witnesses, but the Watchtower Society has done to I can't remember if they're still in trouble with the government right now, but they were getting fined for not releasing names of elders and stuff like that who have abused children. And so then somebody goes in there and starts telling people about that. There's some people who their reaction is just to literally cover their eyes and ears and not listen to what they have to say.
Wow.
And so, yes, they can be very protective of their dogmatic beliefs, of what their leadership has told them to believe in some respects, but they can also not really be protective at times of in the famous example of the Catholic Church. I don't really have to get into what happened there since it's a pretty famous case. But yeah, that wasn't really very protective of children in that case. And so yeah, it's kind of both, I would say.
Great. Okay. Teens and 20-somethings experience Christianity of... sorry, let me reread that. Teens and 20-somethings, the experience of Christianity is shallow.
Experience is shallow. Kind of. Are you talking about akin both?
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to give you a strong yes or no.
I'm hearing that. I'm feeling that already.
It's pretty nuanced.
Okay.
With that.
All right. Reason number 3. Should we go on? Reason number 3. Churches come across as I can't say this word. It's so tough. There it is. I broke it down a little better. Antagonistic. That's the word. Antagonistic. That's a tough word to say for me. I struggled with it with Andy too. Antagonistic to science. Do you disagree with that?
Like I said, it depends on if it's the fundamental beliefs, then I would say definitely it's very, and I wouldn't say antagonistic. It's very combative, conflicting. But as you start becoming like more of a liberal believer in your faith, it's pretty easy to mesh the two.
Okay. Young Christians, church experience related to sexuality often simplistic and judgmental. Often comes across I cannot talk today.
Simplistic and judgmental.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for repeating what I was going to repeat.
I'd lean more towards the agree part on that, just because it's more, like I said before, the more fundamental you get, the more stricter they have in their beliefs. Like, there have been people talking about their experiences with the Watchtower Society, for example. They'll be pulled in a room with, I was listening to this one girl describe how she was pulled into this room with a bunch of elders after her family found out she was gay. And this room of gray-haired old men was asking about these different sexual experiences she had with women. And
wow.
Yeah. And basically telling basically telling her that's not okay to do, but and that it's against nature and all this. But at the same time, you have lions in Africa, for example. There's it was pretty funny because one of the countries in Africa, I can't remember which one, but they accused Western tourists of making their lions gay because they were lions that were homosexual couples. They had mated homosexually. And same thing with penguins in a zoo in New York. There's a pair of homosexual penguins that
Australia too.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, to say it's not natural is basically not very accurate, because in nature it happens pretty often. And to say that you're doing something wrong because of something I believe, that's pretty not okay to do.
Okay. Reason number 5. They wrestle with the exclusive nature of Christianity. I can really read today, I promise. They wrestle with the exclusive nature of Christianity.
Wrestle with the exclusive nature of Christianity.
Jesus said, and I'll quote him, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me.
Yeah.
That seems pretty exclusive.
Well, yeah, but then, like I said, we were talking before the show, or did I say it earlier in the show, before the show? Either way, it's there are different as you get more conservative with your beliefs or more liberal. Some people will say you have to just believe that he's your savior, and then you're allowed into heaven for this paradise. Then there are other people who say you have to do good works, you have to be baptized, and you have to kneel down at the altar and accept him into your heart and say basically this sort of phrase in order to accept that salvation. And so, like I said, I would say agree pretty much with a lot of them. It would be agree more to the conservative side and disagree more to the liberal side, if that makes sense.
I think it does. Okay. Last one, number 6. Church feels unfriendly to those who doubt. Church seems unfriendly to those who doubt.
Yeah, same sort of pattern. Agree is the more
Gary.
conservative you get, and then disagree the more liberal you get. They'll do the whole bringing people in who not necessarily believe what they have to say in order to profess those beliefs to them. But at the same time, if you don't necessarily accept those beliefs, there's a lot of fundamentalist people who would say we don't want to have anything to do with you. It's more with, I'm using these two examples a lot because that's the one I know the most about, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. But with Jehovah's Witnesses, they have basically cutting you off completely from your family, cutting you off completely from your community if you don't believe exactly what they do. And then Mormons do it to a degree. They don't necessarily have it as part of their doctrine of the church, but it's more of, okay, you're not really believing the whole Mormon thing, so we'll not associate with you as much. And so, like I said before, the more conservative you get with those, the more fundamental conservative you get with those, it can tend to lean towards the cutting yourself off from somebody who doesn't believe the same thing as you. So you don't, I would say, like, get thoughts creeping in that disagree with what you believe is the pattern I've noticed with a lot of that.
Okay. So I got one question left for you, but we're going to play a game first.
Oh, the dice game?
The dice game. Here we go. So it's a game I like to call Senseless. So roll that dice there.
Okay.
In the awesome North Carolina Cup.
I've been playing a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, so this is going to come very natural to me.
Love my Tar Heels. Little Tar Heel plug there.
Okay. Let's see what it is.
What'd you get? Number 6.
Number 6.
Bum, bum, bum.
If only I could roll that well in my campaigns.
Exactly. I think. I've never honestly played Dungeons & Dragons.
It's very, very fun and addicting.
Okay. I'll
Very
take your word for
imaginative,
it.
too. You don't have to have a TV screen in front of you. Just have
What?
pen and paper and a couple friends, and that's all it takes.
Wow.
And some dice, of course.
Of course. Okay, so here's the game Senseless. These are all involving senseless things. So, but this is kind of non-senseless. But here we go. I'm curious who you'll say here. Dinner with one person, dead or alive. Who would it be?
One person, dead or alive. Oh, this is going to be really hard. Why did I roll a 6?
I don't know. I did not roll the 6. You did.
I know. It's like trying to pick your favorite child.
Okay, so if I was going to narrow it down to say 3.
3? It'd still be hard, but I could probably do that.
Okay, I'll expand the question because you're helping me out so much. I'm going to give you some extra grace.
I'm very difficult, I know.
I know. Problem child. So 3 people. Yeah, 3 people. Who do you got?
One of them is, I would have to say, there's Carl Sagan, one of the great astronomers of all time.
Carl Sagan.
Yes. He said the famous pale blue dot quote. Then I would have to say Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. He was a president.
Yes, president, one of the founding fathers.
Yep.
Helped form this country of ours, one of the great experiments in history. And number 3, Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay.
Yes, just because we'd have to have somebody to cook a good meal. So.
Got it.
And he is a very, very strict person. Doesn't allow any mistakes in his kitchen.
Fair enough. All right, there's our 3. Thanks for playing Senseless, Gary. All right, so last question to close the show. This is the toughest one of all. Are we friends, by the way?
I would hope so.
Okay.
I've known you for...
No, I just was wondering because, like, Andy and I were talking in our episode that, I knew Andy a long time and years have passed, obviously. But I would consider him more of an acquaintance now because of so much time has passed. But so I just was curious. So keep that friend idea in mind, okay? Would you go back to church if a friend invited you? That's the last question.
Like, I mean, I could. It really depends. Like, if you're saying, come back on a consistent basis, then I mean, I wouldn't really necessarily want to, just because I wouldn't want to be sit there and told all these things that conflict with my beliefs for a couple hours a day or an hour a day. So it would kind of be annoying to go all the time.
Sure.
But I mean, once or twice, if there's, like some community event going on, it's not harmful to, go and spend time with people.
Okay, I might have given you a mistruth there.
Uh-oh.
Because I just thought of another question that I really want to close with. Okay, so here's my really close. Who do you say that Jesus is?
Who do you say that Jesus is?
Not books, but who does Gary say that Jesus is?
Who does Gary say that Jesus is?
And you're Gary, by the way.
Yes. There's quite a few Garys out there.
I know.
Gary Oldman,
I know like 7 of them.
Gary Sinise.
I like Gary Sinise.
He's a good actor. But it's pretty... I would go... Let me start out with the answer. From when I was younger, I would say he's exactly what the Bible says, the way, the truth, and the life. He's the person who came to save us from all our sins. But as I get older, I started, like I said, looking at history of stuff. And now it's more of, I'm kind of on the line of he is a great person that, people have deified over the years. Or he's not necessarily a person, but like, how do I describe it? Like somebody that kind of grew, like maybe a couple different people that kind of, got coalesced into one person.
Almost like a Santa Claus, minus the gift giving and holiday cheer and all that.
Well, I mean, depending on what you believe, he's a gift giver, but
Well, right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying Santa is an accumulation of stories that were basically like 4 different people.
Well,
My
yeah,
understanding
yeah,
is
yeah.
of Santa.
Yeah. But pretty much that scenario.
There's no Santa,
Yeah.
by the way. Sorry, I just wrecked that.
You just destroyed
wrecked
millions
that.
of 7-year-old hearts.
Wreck that. We might have to cut that out. Well, Gary, thanks. You gave me way more time than I think we anticipated, but you never know when we get talking what's going to happen. But thank you. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to walk in your shoes, because, it's always nice to walk in someone else's shoes to hopefully get a different perspective on life.